For centuries, mummies were just these mysterious, kind of spooky relics. But that's all changing. Right now, science is transforming them into these incredibly detailed historical records, letting us meet the people of ancient Egypt in a way we never ever could before.
So, that's the big question, right? How do you solve a cold case that's thousands of years old? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. We're going to see how modern scientists are becoming ancient detectives, using the tools of the future to answer questions from the distant past. You know, in the past, studying mummies, well, it usually meant destroying them. The Victorians had these wild unwrapping parties for entertainment. And get this, mummies were even ground up to make a shade of brown paint. It's crazy. But now, thankfully, we've moved way past all that spectacle and destruction. We're all about science and discovery now, protecting these amazing time capsules. And that shift in thinking is absolutely everything. Let's take a look at how this new scientific approach has completely changed how we see mummies. See, a mummy isn't just a preserved body anymore. Scientists now see it as a biological archive. Think of it like a personal library. Every single bone, every bit of tissue holds a chapter of that person's life story, just waiting for us to read it. So how do you read that library without, ripping out the pages? Well, the first tool in the kit is some seriously advanced imaging, something you might have even seen in a modern hospital. It's called a CT scan, and it's basically a super powerful 3D X-ray machine. It takes hundreds of pictures and then a computer stacks them all together. The result? A perfect digital copy of the mummy, inside and out. It lets scientists explore everything without ever having to touch or damage the ancient wrappings. It's revolutionary. The whole process is kind of like a high-tech magic trick. It's actually pretty straightforward. First, they scan the mummy. Then, a computer builds a super detailed 3D model. And finally, the best part. Scientists can digitally peel back every single layer, from the linen wrappings right down to the skeleton. Okay, let's look at a real-life example. This is the Golden Boy, a teenager who lived about 2,300 years ago. For all that time, the secrets inside his coffin were completely hidden. And then, a CT scan changed everything. So, what was the first big surprise? 49. That's how many protective amulets the embalmers had so carefully placed within his wrappings and even inside his body cavity. An entire treasure trove of ritual objects, totally invisible from the outside. And this just shows you the incredible detail we can now see. These weren't just random decorations. Each one had a purpose. They found a golden tongue so he could speak to the gods in the afterlife, a scarab over his heart to ensure a favorable judgment. It was a complete spiritual defense system, all revealed by the scan. Okay, so we've seen the big picture. Now let's zoom in, way in. We're moving from the large-scale view of CT scans to the tiny microscopic clues hidden in DNA and ancient chemicals. This stuff is amazing. Scientists can actually pull out ancient DNA to rebuild family trees and even spot diseases. They use this other cool technique to figure out the exact recipe of the embalming oils. And they can even analyze the atoms in teeth to learn what someone ate and where they grew up. And the DNA analysis has already led to some huge surprises. It turns out ancient Egyptians were most closely related to people from the Near East. The increased sub-Saharan African ancestry we see in modern Egyptians, well, that actually happened much later, after the Roman period. This literally rewrites the population history of the entire region. And check this out, this discovery just blows my mind. When they analyzed the chemicals in the embalming jars, they found resins that only grow in the rainforest of Southeast Asia. That's hard proof of a global trade network connecting Egypt and Asia 2,500 years ago, all to get the best ingredients to prepare someone for the afterlife. Wow. All right, now we get to the really juicy stuff. What happens when you combine all of these incredible tools, the CT scans, the DNA, the chemical analysis, and you point them at some of history's most famous cold cases? For 100 years, this has been the question. The Boy King, King Tut. Was he murdered? Did he die in a brutal chariot crash? For decades, it was a complete and total mystery. But now, we have an answer. The verdict? Not murder. DNA analysis showed his parents were actually brother and sister, which led to some severe health problems, including a bone disease that meant he had to walk with a cane. So what was the final blow? The evidence points to a nasty leg fracture that got infected with malaria. Case closed. But if you think Tut's story is dramatic, our next case is even crazier. We know from ancient papyrus that there was a plot to kill the pharaoh Ramesses III. It was called the Harem Conspiracy. But here's the question. Did it actually work? His mummy wasn't talking until now. A CT scan peered deep beneath those perfectly intact neck bandages and found the secret he'd been hiding for 3,000 years. A huge gash, almost 3 inches wide, deep across his throat. There was no question it was fatal. The assassins had succeeded. This wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was a successful hit. And the story gets even wilder. DNA testing connected Ramesses to this other, really strange mummy found nearby. This man was buried in a ritually unclean sheepskin, which was a huge dishonor. Well, the DNA proved it. This was the pharaoh's own son, Prince Pentawere. And forensic evidence shows he was likely hanged for his role in the plot. A father and son, their violent end finally definitively proven by science. So all of these individual stories, all these little clues, they start to add up to something much, much bigger. It's not just about how these people died. It's about getting to know how they actually lived. By combining all these different techniques, we can write a whole new kind of biography for people who never left behind any written records of their own. We can trace their family tree, map out where they grew up, know what they ate for dinner, which, by the way, was a lot of bread and beer, and even understand the illnesses they battled. We can finally know them as individuals. We have learned so much, but honestly, this is just the beginning. The technology gets better and better every single year. You have to wonder, what incredible secrets are these ancient people going to share with us next?